Work, work, work. At the same time that some business owners grew rich, many Americans toiled in unsafe, overcrowded factories, earning barely enough for food and shelter. There was a huge divide between the working class and the people who ran America's companies. So now we're looking at the downside of industrialization. Um, Many Americans, whether they were native whites, new immigrants, African Americans, this was not necessarily a great time. You had the captains of industry, the people on top, were doing very, very well, getting mansions and living the life, um, while their workers suffered under terrible conditions. And the question is, why would they do such a thing? Why would they work in filthy, hot in the summer, freezing in the winter, no windows, no light? You're working 14 hours a day, and this includes children. Why would they do that? And the answer is that they needed the money, and if they walked off the job, nobody cared because they would just find the next person. These are low skill factories where it's easy to train people, and there's a lot of eager people. All these immigrants coming in, all these people coming off the farm, all these African Americans coming from the South to run away from Jim Crow. You're going to have plenty of people to choose from to take up these jobs, and so there's no reason to pay them a lot of money, so they have to work long hours. And there's no reason to treat them well because, well, there's nobody telling you otherwise. You're focused on trying to make as much money and making your trains run on time and your factories work really well, and sometimes that includes mistreating your workers. And so people started talking about the captains of industry. If you remember yesterday, we were talking about the captains of industry here, and they looked really nice. They looked smart. They looked industrious. They were philanthropic, meaning they gave a lot of money away to people and gave a lot to charity. Um, but this is the other side, and so they started calling these captains of industry robber barons. That they're out to exploit people. And they would set up things like sweatshops, and sweatshops are places where people are working in unsanitary places. It's dirty, it's cramped, it's a very uncomfortable environment. For instance, in the coal mines, you couldn't breathe. You get black lung. These people didn't live very long because of such toxic conditions that they had to endure. And so in these sweatshops where they would make clothes or meat packing or whatever, they're cramped in there shoulder to shoulder. There's no windows, hardly any light, and they're very dangerous too. You've got kids with knives opening up oysters and trying to keep up with the demand of what the business needed. And this was especially a problem, having these kids um, work in the mines or work at a factory or whatever it is that they needed the kids to do. Um, they couldn't go to school and learn how to do anything else. They were always going to be a miner. They were always going to be somebody that worked in a factory, and they could never break free. They were destined from that point on to simply keep working in those factories or mines when they got older. And so laws were, people saw this was a problem, that if we have kids doing this, then, how many great minds are going to be lost to these dead end jobs? Um, how many how many talented kids that if they had learned science or they had learned mathematics or they had learned biology and medicine could have been great scientists, great innovators, and now that we'll never know because they were stuck in these jobs. And so that Congress and the government started making laws, and there were, we asked, what, weren't there already laws in the books? Yeah, there was a law in the book that said that any kid under 14 can only work for 12 hours a day. Can you imagine working for 12 hours a day as a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old? We go to school for less than 6 hours, and we think that's a long, long time. And, double that. Imagine that, and instead of doing schoolwork or listening to a teacher, you are doing the same thing over and over again. You're hitting rock with a pickaxe, or you're just you're opening up oysters all day, every day, for the rest of your life. So it took a while, but organizations like the National Child Labor Committee, the NCLC, got started in 1904 and did everything they could in order to stop this exploitation of children. I mean, just imagine, that they would be disabled because of the machinery. These kids sometimes couldn't handle it, and get fingers chopped off, and just live brutal lives. So it took a while. It would take until the 30s for national laws to be put in effect to stop this from happening. But if you ever wonder why there's truancy, where the government, if you stop coming to school, the government will come to your house and make you go to school. It's because of what happened during this time in our history. That is not a great moment in history, but we fixed it. We finally got around to it, but we did fix it, and that's why things are the way they are.